Good morning, everyone. Our chapter 2 is about ecosystem and living organisms. For this chapter, we will be able to first describe what is an ecosystem and its key components. Second, discuss the function of biotic and abiotic factors in the environment, which is already touched during our first discussion. Third, analyze the flow of matter and energy through different trophic levels and between organisms and physical environment. Lastly, show awareness of some community practice sustainable living to help in the balance of ecosystem. So let's have the discussion first about ecosystem or the concept of ecosystem. The Earth is composed of diverse plants and animals. These living organisms need different resources, of course, in the environment in order to survive. The study of the interaction between living and non-living things in the ecosystem is called what? Ecology. Okay, so it is ecology. Also, what is the interaction in the ecosystem is very essential to maintain the life on Earth. Ecosystem refers to the community of living organisms that interact with the physical factors in its environment. Also, it is a geographic area where plants, animals, and other organisms, as well as the weather and landscape, work together to form a bubble of life. Okay? So the interaction between among and among organisms allow the flow of energy and matter. So, can you give other examples on how living organisms interact with its environment? So, for example, in this figure, plants such as grass needs the energy from the sun and of course the carbon dioxide produced by the animals to undergo the photosynthesis. Of course, in return, plants produce glucose and oxygen that is utilized by animals. At the same time, plants and animals cannot survive without water, right? Which is also found in the environment. In this time, we will be able to discuss the biotic and abiotic factors. So in the ecosystem, it is divided into two components, the biotic or the living things and the abiotic or non-living things. When we say abiotic components or biotic factors, it is adapting the abiotic condition present in the natural environment in order to survive. In abiotic components, it includes temperature, air currents, water current, amount of sunlight, type of soil, amount of rainfall, and all the nutrients available, like in this uh, picture. Okay, so how does an equal distribution of sunlight influence distribution of organisms? Because of climate. So climate is one of the significant influence on the distribution of organisms on land and of course in ocean. The climate patterns are affected by the different factors such as seasonal variation, bodies of water, and mountain ranges. Okay, and let's proceed. Photosynthesis. Let's discuss here the photosynthesis. Okay, so photosynthesis and cellular respirations are very important components of the carbon cycle. It refers to the movement and exchange of carbon in biosphere, atmosphere, oceans, and geosphere through chemical, physical, geological, and biological processes. As we all know, the sun is the main source of energy used by plants and other photosynthetic organisms. Right? Plants undergo photosynthesis to utilize the light, energy, and of course produce glucose and oxygen. Plants are considered as autotrophs or primary producers as they can produce energy for their own metabolic process. In contrast to heterotrophs or consumers that derives its nutrition from other organic matter such as plants and animals. How about the food chain, the food web, and the energy? Okay, so the species inhabiting the same community interact with each other along with the resources found in the environment, as you can see in the picture. With this interaction, organisms can transfer matter and energy within the environment. The variety of species living in the community contributes to its diversity and productivity. So what is food chain? A food chain is a linear sequence of organisms through which nutrients and energy pass as one another eats another. For example, in this picture, so deer eats the plants while the lion eats the deer. And then when the lion is died, it will go to the soil which will produce as fertilizer to the plants. How about the food web? Food webs consist of many interconnected food chains, as you can see here, and are more realistic representation of consumption relationships in ecosystem. Okay, so again, food web is or consists many interconnected food chains. Okay, and what else? Food webs is also used to describe the relationship among the species in the ecosystem, and it also shows indirect interactions among the species. Also, food webs examine the bottom up and or top down control of the community, and also it reveals patterns of energy transfer in different ecosystems. Okay, so this energy is being transferred from one organisms to another in the form of food. So the transfer of food energy from producers and consumers or to consumers up to decomposers is referred as food chain, as we discussed earlier. When the food chains are interlinked with each other, it is called now as food web. How about the interrelationships of organisms? Species can interact with different species, living close to them and within the same community. The interaction between and among species living with the environment may have the positive, the negative, or the neutral effect to them. This is described as ecological relationships, and it has three main classifications: the symbiosis, the predation, and the competition. So the group of same species living in the same area it is called as population. So those species or those group of populations can change over time, which is influenced by, of course, many factors. And each environment has carrying capacities which limit the number of organisms and populations it can support. Let's have the symbiosis. As you can see here, symbiosis, this is type of interaction occurs when organisms live in direct and intimate contact with each other. Halimbawa, uh, for flowers get pollinated, of course, bee gets nectar, and both of them have the benefit to one another. Okay, so the interaction may be beneficial, harmful, or neutral. The organisms rely on each other as major part of their life cycle. The host organism serves as provider of resources while the symbionts are the consumers of such resources which may or may not provide service in return. And it has symbiosis has three types based on this picture, which is mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Okay, for mutualism, there are benefits to both species. There are several benefits that may be gained through mutualistic relationships, such as protection from predators, enhanced survivorship, increased reproduction, and great niche expansion. For commensalism, so one species is that the benefit of the first species may be positive and the other one is just neutral. So it is when one species or the commensal benefits to the other, but the other species does not affect or it is unaffected in the interaction. While in parasitism, the one organism benefits or parasite and the other is harm, like like what you see in this picture. For predation is just like parasitism. Okay? But this time, it's an interaction where one species or the predator kills and eats the other species or the prey. Most of the time, predation is related to carnivorous animals who kill the other animals as food resources, such as eagle hunting for snakes and mouse, lions attacking smaller animals. So interspecific competition happens when members of the same species compete for limited resources. Okay, this can regulate population dynamics since population increase may the resources become more limited. And it is called as competition. When we say competition, it is when organisms compete for limited resources such as food, water, space, light, mates, and other resources that are needed to survival for or reproduction. It can be interspecific or intraspecific competition. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you will do your activity at the same time your quiz for this chapter. Hope to see you next time. Have a good day. Stay safe. Bye.